So during the first day of the Arabic class, we asked the students, why are you taking Arabic? And the most answer was, because I am an ROTC, which is the Army program at university. That answer shocked me. I was a Fulbright Scholar last year in Georgia Southern University in the state of Georgia. And as a 25 university teacher, I was wondering, did I come all the way from Tunisia to teach Army students, to be sent to the Middle East to bring the so-called democracy and fight the so-called enemy? I had really to step back and think about it. Do I want to go back home and continue my meaningful contribution to the transition in Tunisia that is going on? Or do I want to stay here and have a meaningful contribution in the States? The decision wasn't easy, but I decided to make a commitment. A commitment to teach through Arabic, my culture, my religion, to teach the hospitality of my people. And I used language as a bridge, bridging those students to the Arab region. I didn't teach only Arabic, I taught the understanding. And after 2 semesters, that was the result.
When I was in basic training, a lot of discriminatory terms were used, like such as, before I started taking Arabic classes, like I hadn't been exposed to anybody, Arab or Muslim, beforehand, but the drill sergeants would always say, if we were doing a drill for squad attacks and stuff like that, they'd say, all right, we've got 2 ragheads or 2 camel jockeys or something out there that, you know, we need to take care of. But now, I mean, that kind of, I feel really offensive just saying that to you, so, but just to express, now I wouldn't even say that, or like Haji or something, because that has a direct reference to their religion.
So my point from this is that through education, we can really bridge cultures and people, if we want to really use education for peace building and dialogue. But actually, there is another important tool that can play that role, but actually is not doing it, which is media. So if you think of an Arab region, or you think of an Arab, this is the image that media propagates. I have been giving a lot of talks during that academic year to middle and high schools, even to the Methodist Church. And most of the stereotypes that I had can be summarized in that image, especially that I'm associated with double stereotypes. I am a woman and coming from the region. So I should be veiled, have never driven a car, among 3 other wives for an oppressed husband who has a beard and a turban and maybe ready to bomb our house. And we use camels as means of transportation, and we live in the desert. Of course, I'm not generalizing. This is, from my experience, the majority of American perception. And we cannot blame them, because this is what the media propagates. But also in the region, we have our own perception of America, which is war, war, and war. We have been fed with a lot of politics in the region. And between certain education we receive, certain media we absorb every day, and certain politics, we have lost a very important element, which is human connection. We have really lost human connection. Human connection is important because in politics, yes, it is influential, but I believe that people are the most important element of that bridging between cultures. Because young people will be in few years in those same influential positions. But the difference between the leaders of today and tomorrow is that understanding and that human connection. And we cannot say that we are bridging between 2 cultures until we forget the word, the Arab word. We're just not a separate word. We are 2 parts of the same word. And we cannot call it anymore the Arab word. I had many questions during my presentation and talks. And one question really struck with me is, how do you guys have fun? And I was wondering. But at the end, when I got all these questions, I wanted to deliver a message. That yes, we drive crazily in the Arab region. We don't have as awesome infrastructure as the United States. But we love, we date, we study. We're just like everybody else. We are human beings. and we just want to move on with our lives. We're not as violent, as barbarian, as backward as we are all the time portrayed. And that's why I believe in the power of storytelling, not through using media or education, but through using alternative media. So I started a blog called Proudly Tunisian during the revolution, and I started a YouTube channel with the same name of the blog. And I started diffusing videos. The first video I did was called What Do You Know About Arabs? And what I wanted to do through that video is just to ask ordinary students about what they know, what they think about Arabs. And I wanted to direct that video towards Americans, to really know what they understand and what they misunderstand. Because the first step to build dialogue is actually to expose it, just to admit and expose those stereotypes we have. Then I moved to more building that positive image and that positive narrative. Because we hear a lot of Americans saying, for example, our Arabs are terrorists, but most of the people, if not all, I interviewed said, that's the stereotype, but we don't believe in that. We believe that we cannot judge the act of few for the many. And when you hear sometimes on the news or on the media how women say about women in the Arab region, we don't hear this.
And so we as Americans can't sit back and say, oh no, these poor women, because they're cracking their ceiling. We still have our ceiling to crack too, so before we can ever look on someone else, we have to first realize there's a lot of fights we have to uptake in this country. So when we look at other systems and nations, they're cracking their own ceiling, but in their own way, in the context of their culture, and that's fine too.
So before I left the States, I did a short documentary called Arab Muslims Living in the US. And as much as I wanted to diffuse that image and change the narrative of Americans saying positive things about the Arab region, I wanted also to work a lot on ourselves in the region and change our perceptions of things. And so we need also to put on the news and on the media people like Nadia saying,
I mean, I live in the buckle of the Bible, Bible Belt, and I lived here 20 years, and nobody's ever been openly rude or prejudiced to me. People, a lot of times, want to learn. They don't know. If they're ignorant, it's not malicious ignorance. They just don't know.
Now, I want to move with this idea towards more of building really a complete package of a story. Because as I said, I believe in storytelling. So I'm excited to start documenting this story. On the right is Kane Smego. He's white American. He's a spoken word poet. And he has established an organization called Sacrificial Poet. And he organizes open mic every Wednesday in North Carolina. So you can check it out. And on the left is Anis Garni, a Tunisian spoken word poet. He established an organization called Slam Musica, and he organizes open mic the last Saturday of every month. When I realized this story, I found out more similarities than differences between these two people. They both strive for a cause. They both use art for social change. And they both even tackle the same issues of their poetry, because I attended both performances. So the only difference I could find is language. They both use different languages to deliver their message. We need more of these stories. We need to document more of these stories. I believe in storytelling because I don't remember really what is in books as much as I remember my Liberian friend telling me about civil war in Liberia. Every single person I interviewed, the story is stuck here. But I can forget research, I can forget academic statistics, but we cannot all forget our stories. And I believe every one of you has a story to tell. You cannot let it go. It has to be told, because it can inspire one person as it can inspire millions of people. It can change the perceptional life of one person. It can change the life and perception of millions of people. And when I came back to Tunisia, I spent my whole life in Tunisia, and I lived 1 year in the States. But I realized that human connection, And I wanted to continue when I came back because I felt that duty to tell the story. And everybody here has a dream. I found out that also in the Arab region and the United States, we have the same dream. So the last video I made was about I have a dream. Not only Martin Luther King has a dream. So I told the interviewees to say, I have a dream, and finish the sentence in Tunisia and in the States. And to my surprise, it was definitely the same dream.
I have a dream that people like me, those who study the practice of war and of making it, will be unnecessary in the near future. And that war will be an outdated form of interaction between peoples, and that those who study the making of it will instead study music and science.
So I urge everybody to find that story undocumented because it's not the mainstream. It's the mainstream, it's not the exception. We always been told that what we see is the mainstream, but our stories are exceptions. Definitely not. Our stories are the mainstream. Thank you.